Today, we're talking about starters for the Chicago Bulls and who could likely lose their starting position this upcoming season. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Modest Buzelis slam dunks in games. And so in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. And so make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Chicago Bulls Insider family as we talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it as we're talking about the starters for the Chicago Bulls and just really who could possibly lose their starting position this upcoming season. And so got a chance to see this article on Clutch Points. And so if you want to go ahead and give it a read, it's under this article title. And so it's one Bulls player in danger of losing starting job in 2025-26 training camp. And so to start off, they have their list of just really who they expect to be the starter, and then also too just who the main backup is going to be. And so starting at the point guard position, they have Josh Giddey, with the main backup being Trey Jones. They have Coby White at the two guard with Kevin Huerter backing him up. Next, you have Ayo Dosunmu with Isaac Okoro backing him. And then next you have Modest Buzelis with Patrick Willams being his main backup. And lastly, Nikola Vucevic backed up by Zach Collins. And so from there, they go into just really the position that they think is up for grabs. And so they think that the position where there is going to be a battle this upcoming season, it's going to be Modest Buzelis and Patrick Willams. Now, they do feel like that Modest Buzelis is ultimately going to win out in this position. And so this is what it says at the end of the article. It says that the final verdict here is that although Modest Buzelis holds the most volatile roster spot, he's currently trending upwards while Patrick Willams has sort of stagnated over the last few years. The Bulls are hoping the new look roster can ignite a new style of play that Billy Donovan has been hoping for since his arrival to the franchise. And so starting there and then just really talking about the starters that they have listed. And so, look, I do not think that there is going to be much of a battle between Modest Buzelis and Patrick Willams. I just don't see Modest Buzelis really turning back. I think that one of the things that I'm encouraged with Modest Buzelis is that, you know, he went out and he got stronger. And I definitely think it's going to help him on the offensive end, but I think he's going to be a bit of a surprise on the defensive end. And so one of the arguments that this article makes is that Patrick Willams, you know, and the defense that he provides. And so I just think that Modest Buzelis at this point in time, he's already past Patrick Willams. And I think that he takes a step forward even more from Patrick Willams on the defensive end, because with added strength, now you're talking about being more on balance as a defender. And so that means that, you know, when a player comes down and then they try to give you, you know, some contact to kind of, you know, nudge you off your position to try to get into position to where they can get a good shot attempt up or kind of open things up for a teammate. Now you're more in balance here. So you make it difficult for that, you know, offensive player that you're guarding to get the advantage there. And then also too, with Modest Buzelis gaining some strength, I think that you're going to see that he's going to compete even more on pick and roll situations there. And I think that his height and just really his length is going to impact just opposing teams when they're trying to, you know, pass and things like that, because I think he can get into the passing lanes and hurt you that way and just make it difficult when you're trying to maneuver through those screens. And then next, you know, he already has shown that he can block shots. And so, you know, the question with Modest Buzelis is just what type of shot blocker is he going to turn into? Because I'd love to see him become, you know, the shot blocker that really can just get multiple types of shots. And I'm talking about, you know, not only just being the one that's just a rim protector, but one that will literally stuff it in your face. You know, when you go and you try to shoot a jumper, he's a guy that can take it right out of the air. And so I just think that, you know, when you're that type of shot blocker, it just makes it that much more tougher to score on. And really, I think it elevates your defense. And so I think that that is point number one as to why I don't think that Modest Buzelis really looks back. And then when you look at the offense and that added strength, I think that you're going to see that, you know, now that he's handling the basketball, you're going to see just really what he can do. And so I know it's a bit of a question mark, but look, I loved how he finished the season with Josh Giddey and Coby White. And I do think he takes a step forward there. And then also, too, look, his jump shot, I anticipate that it's going to be even better than what it was a season ago. I loved how he finished the year. And actually, I loved how he came in, too, because one of the things with Modest Buzelis that was like a question mark was, could he shoot the three ball? And I think he answered that for the most part. And so I think that now with just starting and everything else, added responsibility, Modest Buzelis is going to take this challenge head on. And so I just don't think that Patrick Willams does enough to take over the power forward position. Now, what I do agree with is that Patrick Willams will probably, I think, be the primary power forward coming off the bench. I think that that is probably where Patrick Willams is going to really carve out a role this season, because I just think that when you look at the small forward position, there's just too much competition there. Because for me, I think that you can go with Kevin Huerter. I think that you can also go with, Isaac Okoro if he's going to be on the bench, or Ayo Dosunmu. And I also think, too, that Julian Phillips is actually ahead of Patrick Willams slightly. And I think that there's the potential that Julian Phillips might actually take a step forward too. And so that just makes it super competitive for Patrick Willams to get in there at the small forward position. And I think that, he has a better chance to me to probably beat out, I'd say, Jalen Smith at this point in time for, power forward minutes. And so I think that that's probably going to be the role for Patrick Willams, but let's see if he takes a step forward. And then just going back and just taking a look here at the starters that they have listed, I definitely think that, look, Josh Giddey is certainly a lock at the point guard position with just what he can do as far as kind of opening up the floor for others with the assists, the rebounds, and things like that. And then also, too, if he continues to trend up offensively and really picks up where he left off, that is going to be, a tough guard to cover here with Josh Giddey. I think the question now is, can he step up defensively? And so I definitely think he's a lock there for you. And I know the Bulls are going to go ahead and throw him the keys to this offense. And then with Coby White, look, Coby White is in a year where he is a free agent after this one. And so I think he is going to come out and just absolutely ball out. This is a chance for him to actually play a role that, he is continuing on and not taking another role. And so I think that that's going to be a huge benefit for Coby White. And so I definitely think that he's certainly locked in at the starter. And then when you talk about the small forward, I think that this is where it's probably the most interesting. And so I actually do have Ayo Dosunmu actually winning this. And so I do think that, yes, you probably would come with Isaac Okoro off of the bench. And so I think that I do agree with that. Or you could, again, go with Kevin Huerter. Either way, I think that that is probably going to be the real battle on this team. But I do think that Ayo Dosunmu comes back hungry. He gives you that true two-way ability. And I think that really we just didn't get a chance to see what he could do in this new offense. And so I think his leadership, his just presence, and just bringing really a defensive identity to this team, I think it's something that Billy Donovan trusts and he's going to put out there. And so let's see if he earns the starting position. I know Ayo Dosunmu has said that he's wanted to start before in the past. But again, I don't rule out the fact that maybe Isaac Okoro could be in the mix, because even if they do go that direction, I still think that that is a strong way to go, because really, I think the Bulls do need defense on the floor, and you want to really try to do everything you can to stop teams from getting to the paint. So that means to me that you're going to put a defender out there. And so not to take anything away from Kevin Huerter, who's a terrific player. I think he's balanced all around and everything else. And so I just know that defense, not necessarily his calling card. And so we'll find out what Billy Donovan is thinking, just who he goes with at that starting position. And so, I think that is really where I'm at with this, the starters here for the Chicago Bulls. And I think that when you look at Nikola Vucevic, I don't think that, there's no question, around him. Like, he's definitely going to start at this point in time. Zach Collins is not the better player at the center position. And Jalen Smith, he's not the better player right now than Vooch, because Vooch is a walking double-double. He's coming off a great year as far as the field goal percentage, and he's already shown that he can play in an up-tempo style of offense. And so we know defensively that's going to be the challenge. But again, if you're talking about this lineup, you're going to get hopefully some improved defense from Modest Buzelis. You're going to get great defense from Ayo Dosunmu. And Coby White, you're hoping that you can get some better defense with him. He has been trending up. I talked about the fact that he's almost to a steal a game. And Josh Giddey at times definitely showed that he could defend, especially down the stretch. And so can he continue with that momentum? And so, I think this team is going to be a lot better as far as like being disruptive on the outside, which will help them, as far as just defending the paint, because it's going to be tougher for teams to get in there. And then also too, if you have a swarming defense and things like that, perhaps it makes it more difficult, when teams do get inside. And so let's see what happens with this. But that is just really where I think that, that's where the starter that could possibly lose their position, it would be, I think, at the small forward position with Kevin Huerter. I think that he's the guy that could lose it. But anyway, you guys let me know in the comments, which starter do you think possibly loses their starting position this upcoming season? And then also too, who do you think, as far as just coming off the bench, is going to be the biggest rotational piece for the Chicago Bulls? And so I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. And as we always say, go Bulls, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.